Well, as we've been discussing in recent weeks, parts of regional New South Wales and, of course, Queensland could run out of water as early as November, with data showing the worst-case scenario for the state of New South Wales is if there's no rain or government intervention. So that's November. Figures from Water New South Wales show without significant rain, the first towns to lose water supply will be Dubbo, Cobar, Nyngan and Narromine, with the Macquarie River forecast to run dry by November. For Sydney, day zero could be as soon as January 2022, according to the data, but I hope it rains a long time before then. Now, this is really an issue that needs the attention of governments, both state and federal, now, not later. Now, I can't make it rain, nor can I do anything more than keep raising this issue here most nights in the hope that our politicians will listen. But when thinking about what people can do to send a message of support to drought-stricken farmers and farming communities, towns also, right across the country, I read a lovely story the other day about Good Samaritans who help out as part of Rural Aid's army of volunteers. Home repairs, livestock help, fixing fences, the whole box and dice. So let's have a bit of good news tonight amongst what's been a bleak issue to date, the drought issue. And joining me now is CEO of Rural Aid, Mr. Charles Alder. Charles, it's really tough out there, isn't it?
It is, Peter, but Australians are showing a great amount of resilience, a great amount of character, and they're continuing to fight on. So hope's not lost yet, and the rest of the country is backing and supporting our farmers and rural communities.
What I find really tough is when we go into periodic droughts, and Australia is a country that's had droughts and flooding rains its whole existence.
Yeah.
What you see people go through is devastating. The livestock communities, homes, local towns and their businesses, all of it's tough, right? All of it's tough. And it's hard to find a glimmer of hope because even with all the money in the world, you can't make it rain. You can cart water, but you can't make it rain. What I loved about that story I read on the weekend is some of the really positive things that people are doing, retired people or people that will volunteer their time, so that they touch the human face of this issue, not just write a cheque from Melbourne as much as you still need money.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Farm Army is a concept that we came up with not long after we started the charity back in 2015. And we're very much aware that in the bush it's all about human contact. We can have telephone services where I can call up and speak to a counsellor. I can text my mates and I can also Facebook like and those sorts of things. But there's nothing quite like being in the moment with someone else. And so what we found was that there were a lot of farmers who didn't want to put their hand up but needed a hand. And so we thought we would create what we now call the Farm Army, which is a great group of volunteers from all over Australia and, in fact, all over the world. We have people register every day to be part of the Farm Army.
Really?
Yeah, and we get Europeans and Americans, a lot of backpackers register because they want to be part of the Farm Army. But specifically, we have a lot of 45 and over grey nomad type people who...
45.
Sorry, Peter. Sorry, 55. Maybe 60.
I'm 45. Anyway, keep going.
So we found a lot of these people have got great skill sets. A lot of them have got great setups. They've got good caravans and campers. And so in their travels through outback Queensland and outback New South Wales specifically, they were looking for something more to do. So we thought, well, listen, why don't you, with your skill sets and in many cases your tools in the caravan, come and stay on a farm, do some work for a few days or a week at a time. And so now we have, we actually run 10 one-week programs a year where we not only concentrate on farms, but we also, very importantly at the moment, concentrate on the community. What can our volunteers and their skill sets do for these communities that they can't do for themselves in the middle of this drought?
Give me some examples. What sort of things are you saying? I mean, I read in the past people have done fencing. Now, that's hard yakka.
Yep.
Anyone who hasn't done fencing doesn't know how to work. I tell you, it's hard work fencing. But there's that, there's painting homes, there's repairing. I mean, obviously when things are tough, a lot of people looking after their house, fixing the flywire door at the front, all of these things become a niggle and they can't afford to do them. What else are we seeing? So we had a family, a mother and two daughters who were living in a steel shed, and that's basically all it was, the four walls. Their bath was a cattle trough, and they had no walls internally inside their shed. So their walls were cupboards and piles of clothes and books and whatever. So we and our volunteers went in there and put up internal walls. We put a combustion heater
in there, in an area where -5 is regular in winter. They had no heating. And we ripped apart the bathroom and we tiled the floor and we put in a new bath and we put the splash back and we sealed the window that was in the frame, but it had the air was still blowing around the window frame. And we put a ceiling in and we put insulation in. And the bathroom today is as good as anyone in suburbia would be happy to have in their house. So it's those sorts of examples, but it's not only the farmers who receive that sort of benefit, it's also the volunteers who are actually having a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
We've got one particular couple who, he particularly, had some challenges in his life, and he admitted to us just recently that being part of the Farm Army and working on these farm and community campaigns has really changed his life and given him some purpose. You
mean that he was struggling with whatever?
Yeah, he had some personal issues.
But I mean, I think this is probably true. You get out there and you see someone who's worse off than yourself, and it helps pick you up. It's
the realisation that there is someone out there that is slightly worse off than you.
Yeah.
And everybody has that. And that's one of the challenges we have with farmers who register with us, is they always say to us, "Oh, listen, Charles, there's someone worse off than me. I don't need the hay, or I don't need the water, or I really don't need to speak to a counsellor at the moment. I'm okay." Really, they're not. They just are so proud that they don't want to have to admit that they need that help.
Men in particular. So what are your main areas of need? I presume it's fodder, water, and work for your army.
So Rural Aid runs the Buy a Bale program, which most Australians are aware of, and we're a very large mover of fodder to feed animals and sheep and cattle. We have a counselling program that provides counselling services to farmers, and we're the only outbound counselling service in Australia. So we've actually got over 9,000 farmers on our database, and over 4,000 of those have had a counselling conversation. So when you mean outbound, you're not waiting for the farmer to call you. You guys are proactively reaching out. Proactively. So if you registered with us, Peter, you would tick a box that said, "I'm happy to have a chat." And one of our counsellors gets the notification and picks up the phone and says, "Hi, Peter, how are you? How are things on the farm?" and really gets into the conversation. It may just be that today it's a superfluous conversation. You're just checking out how the weather is, but there may be something in the conversation that you say to our counsellors who are skilled to pick up on those particular words and that mood, and then move it into a counselling conversation where they can then advise you on how to get through the situation. And then we've got our volunteers who are just phenomenal as part of the Farm Army. All right, so I've got a lot of viewers who are watching you tonight and saying to each other around the lounge room, "Come on, Jane, come on, John, let's get into that, let's go and do it for a while." How can people be involved? How can people, if they can't volunteer, how can they donate for more bales and water and everything else you need? So everything is on the ruralaid.org.au website. People can donate on there, they can read about the Farm Army, they can read about our counsellors and how they can assist farmers. And if people want to call our office, we happily take the telephone calls. The website has got the phone number on it, but it's just great to be able to, and we have such a fantastic organisation of people who are just passionate about helping other Australians. So we're very grateful for the support, and thank you for your support tonight. Thanks very much, Charles.